Salam, hello and welcome. This is my 2005 Yamaha Banshee. I use this quad bike to have fun in the desert all the time. Recently I faced a problem with it when the engine was misfiring at around the mid-range. Now, the way that the misfire was happening, and because it was happening only when the engine was coming to the warm-up temperature or operating temperature, something makes me think it's an electrical reason rather than being mechanical or fuel. So I'm going to try to work on the electrical part of the bike. And to do that, I'll start with the easy parts. Use spark plugs for Yamaha Banshee. And if you are riding Yamaha Banshee, the correct spark plug for it is BR8ES. The R here stands for resistor. So if you find another spark plug called B8ES, that's still okay for Yamaha Banshee. The resistor is basically a modification was made to spark plugs so they don't make turbulence with the car radio, which it doesn't matter in this case. There isn't any radio in this bike. I'll also be using the altimeter. I'll conduct a resistance test for several components in the electrical system in the bike. Now, scale and tool are not the only weapon. Now, this sheet here contains the specs of the electrical system, different components like the stator, the pickup coil, the ignition coil, etc. And what the reading should be when I'm conducting the resistance test. The resistance test is typically, if I set this on the ohm meter, so the resistance test, it's reading or measuring how much of electricity does a wire or a circuit eat between both ends. So what it does, the altimeter here or the ohm meter will send an electrical current. If I'm testing a wire, putting this one at one end and then that one at the other end, then it will send the electricity from here to there, and it will read how much of electricity does the wire eat. That's in principle. So I'll start with changing the spark plugs. I'll take the readings. If all the readings are okay, then I'll let the engine work. I'll let it reach the operating temperature, and then I'll see if the problem persists. Hang on with me. Right, so I'm starting by removing the old spark plugs. Since this is a two-cylinder engine, there's two of them, one here and one at the other side. So let's start. This is really a tiny space and it's not very easy to work here. Here's the spark plug out. Let's take a look at it at the light. Usually this is how a two-stroke engine spark plug looks like. That's because the engine burns oil with the fuel all the time. There are guys who can tell you everything happening in the engine by just looking at the spark plug. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. And for two-stroke engine, there's only certain time when they can tell that. If the engine runs beyond that time, then it's just going to look like this anyway. Note that the spark plug is not oily or wet at the top here. and what that indicates that the fuel to air mix is not really highly rich, which is good. Let's look at the other one. Now, for a good measure, when I'm preparing a new set of spark plugs, what I like to do is I like to take this step here, unscrew it, have a little bit of Loctite or thread lock, and then lock it tight. The reason to do that, because this engine, actually, it does vibrate like crazy. And it's been a couple of times where this bit was stuck in the wire and the wire was removed while the spark plug was sitting in the engine and there was no ignition happening here. So that's why I like to make sure that this is tight on the spark plug. Now, I don't want to keep the engine open for any debris or dirt to go in there, so I'll quickly install the new spark plug. Okay, spark plug 1 in place. I'm leaving the spark plug cables out because in a minute I'll be conducting a resistance test for the ignition coil. Spark plug 2, removing the wire. See, the space is super tight. I barely can fit the ratchet in. Okay. Doesn't look bad at all. And here's the new one. BR8ES. This is the new one. Let's put it in. Now I'm trying to be very careful when I put the spark plug in place. I don't want any debris or sand or dirt to fall inside the cylinder and be resting on the piston. Don't need to tie the spark plugs like super crazy. It's just give it a 3/4. Whenever it comes tight, give it a 3/4 after that if it is a brand new spark plug, so the crush washer can rest. Alright, and now I'll do the resistance test. I'm starting with the ignition coil on the stator. The stator is basically the alternator which generates electricity for the entire vehicle. That includes whether electricity for the ignition system on the engine or electricity for the lights. I need to test between the green and red wires here. The other 2 wires are for the pickup coil, which I'll test in a minute. The resistance between the green and the red wire here should be between 13.7 to 20.5 ohms. So if it is less than that, we have a problem. If it is more than that, we definitely have a problem. I don't think that the ohm meter is set to give the correct meter. Okay, it's 20 thousandths. Should be on here. So this is reading 20.6 ohms. Again, it's 20.6 ohms. The limit is 20.5. Now it's reading 20.5. So The ignition coil on the stator is within the spec. Here it is, 20.5. And so for the pickup coil, the reading should be anywhere between 94 to 140. And to do that, I'm testing the white and green wire and the white and red wire. And really it doesn't matter which connector goes to which wire. It really doesn't matter. Right? I'm reading 122.5. The spec for this circuit is anywhere from 94 to 140. So this circuit is reading okay. It seems fine. The problem seems not to be from here, so I'll put this back. Now, this is where the ignition coil is located on the bike. It's buried under somewhere between the gas tank and the radiator. There is a good chance that the defect might be here. The fact that this is located behind the radiator makes it exposed to the heat all the time. And as the engine gets hot, this could be the reason why I'm having this misfire. So let me check it out. In an ideal situation, either the gas tank should be removed or the radiator should be removed to gain proper access for this device. But I'm not going to do that. Okay, so I got both terminals exposed. And I'm reading 0.7 ohms. The sheet states that it should be between 0.28 and 0.38 ohms. So this seems out of the spec. Okay, here's the other ignition coil that I have. I have tested this between both terminals here and there, and it did read 0.8 ohms. So now what this is telling me, that the ignition coil might not be the cause, so I'll connect it back, I'll run the engine, and I'll see if it will misfire again. Now if it does misfire again, then the chances are that the CDI might be faulty. The CDI is the capacitor discharge ignition unit, which is typically the computer of the bike, and it's located right here. There it is. And that's something cannot be tested. It's full of very accurate electronics inside there. There's no way to test that one by doing resistance test. There is a chance that this one can't be faulty, or there is a chance that a mechanical fault might be the reason behind this misfire. And if it is a mechanical fault, my first suspect will be the reed valves. Reed valves are located right here, and what they do, they are fuel valves. They let the fuel go inside the engine, but it cannot go back to the carburetor. So if this one is cracked or broken, then it allows the fuel to go back, and this can cause the misfire. Anyway, let's run the engine and see if it will work. We'll have to connect everything back. So here goes the spark plug wire. Seated. Now what I did is I reversed the wires. So I installed the right wire on the left plug and the left wire on the right plug. On a Banshee it doesn't really matter, because the way the ignition system works, it gives a spark when one piston is at the bottom dead center, because the other one is at the top dead center. So it fires the sparks in both cables at the same time. So this is not going to affect the timing of the ignition or the delivery of the spark plug. And now let's fire the engine and see the result. So now that the engine is running, I'll let the engine warm up until it reaches anywhere 80, 90 degrees Celsius, and then I'll see. Now actually there is a crisp throttle. It's nice and crisp. Now, that is how the throttle should be throughout the RPM range at any temperature. Could the problem be the old spark plugs? Maybe. Let's wait and see. Right, so after all, it turns out that the spark plug is not the criminal. There is another criminal hidden somewhere here. Right, my next step will be actually to take the reeds out, the reed valves, these guys right here. I'll have to take these out and see if there's any crack or anything in them, and I'll let you guys know. But I can't do this now. The engine is hot. It's way too hot. I'll have to let the engine cool and then proceed.